One moment, laughter filled a Calgary home. The next, screams pierced the night. A father lay dead. Hours later, his daughter, a beloved teacher and mother of 3, would also be gone. Her children saw everything, and the man responsible was the person she once trusted most, her husband. This is not just another true crime story. This is a Christmas that ended in bloodshed. A marriage that became a trap. A family destroyed in less than 36 hours. Before we go further, do not scroll past this story. Like, comment, share, and subscribe so their voices are never forgotten. Because what you're about to hear is the kind of nightmare no family should ever face. So how does love turn into fear? How does a husband become a killer? To understand, we need to go back to where it all began. Shadows inside a marriage are never obvious at first. They creep in quietly, unnoticed by neighbors, friends, even family. But for Anya Wardzela, these shadows were growing heavier every day, heavier with the weight of control, quiet arguments, and subtle manipulations that left her heart racing and her mind restless. She loved her husband, Benedict Kamiński, the father of her 3 children, the man she had shared years of her life with, but something inside their home was changing. Something that would turn the life of a loving family into a nightmare. It started small, almost imperceptibly. A question about a phone call here, a comment about a text there. Nothing that seemed dangerous at first. But over time, these moments became constant. Benedict scrutinized Anya's every move. Who she talked to, where she went. Even the way she prepared meals, the way she arranged her home. Nothing escaped his watchful eyes. And Anya, devoted mother and teacher, tried to smile through it, to keep life normal for her children, to preserve the warmth in her family that everyone admired. Think of someone you trust completely. Now imagine that trust being tested, twisted, and stretched until the person you love begins to feel like a stranger in your own home. That was Anya's reality. Her family noticed. Her brother Peter spoke often about how controlling Benedict could be. How nothing Anya did was ever enough. How simple moments, like setting a place at the dinner table or deciding where a child would sit, became triggers for anger. And yet, outside their doors, Benedict appeared as the model husband, the respectable man. No one could see the conflict. No one could hear the arguments. No one could anticipate the tragedy that was about to unfold. Christmas Day 2024 was meant to be a celebration. A day of laughter, joy, and family traditions. For the Wardzelas, it was a day like any other until it wasn't. The tension that had built silently over years erupted in minutes. Voices were raised, small frustrations exploded into confrontation, and a push, a shove, broke the fragile calm. A door slammed. A family's sense of safety shattered. Anya, the mother who had guided her children through life's first steps, the teacher who had inspired countless students, the daughter who adored her father, she had no idea that the next 4 days would change everything. 4 days that would turn a community upside down. 4 days that would end in bloodshed, loss, and grief beyond measure. 4 days that would leave 3 innocent children orphaned forever. And now I have to ask you, if you were in Anya's position, what would you do? Could you see the warning signs? Could you prevent the inevitable? Pause for a moment, consider it, and remember, the choices made in these moments can mean life or death. Before we continue, I need you to make a promise. Like this video, comment your thoughts, share it so Anya and her children's story isn't forgotten, and subscribe to follow the truth behind cases like this. Because the story that unfolds next is not just another true crime tale. It is the haunting reality of a husband from real hell, a calculated double murder, and the unimaginable aftermath for a family that thought they were safe. To understand how this horror came to pass, we have to go back even further, to Anya's childhood, to her parents' journey from Poland to Canada, to the values and love that shaped her. We must understand the life that was full of promise, joy, and normalcy, before control, tension, and obsession took hold. Only then can we fully grasp the shock of what happened on that fateful Christmas and the tragic chain of events that followed. Think of a family where laughter echoed through every room, where love was spoken in words, in gestures, in meals prepared with care, and in every shared moment. That was the Wardzela family. Stanislaw, the father, worked tirelessly to provide for his children, ensuring that every opportunity, every dream, every small joy was within reach for Anya and Peter. He was more than a provider. He was a guide, a protector, a friend. He taught them to hunt, to camp, to appreciate the mountains that surrounded Calgary, to cherish life, and to never take a single day for granted. Peter, Anya's younger brother by 18 months, shared a bond with her that was unbreakable. They spoke every day, often for hours, about nothing and everything. The kind of sibling connection that anchors a person in the storms of life. Peter described their relationship as one built on trust, laughter, and shared memories, a connection that would later give him the strength to endure unimaginable loss. Anya herself radiated warmth, not just within her family, but across her community. Her love for teaching, for nurturing, for guiding young minds was matched only by her dedication to Polish culture. Choirs, dance groups, scouting. She was everywhere, making a mark on lives she might never even realize she touched. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors described her as someone who brought people together, who lifted spirits, who made others feel seen and valued. Imagine a neighbor, Diane Wysocki, who knew the Wardzela family for over 2 decades. She recalled how tight they were, how Anya and her father shared jokes and laughter that could fill a room. Imagine the school principal and colleagues who marveled at Anya's dedication, how her students adored her, how she left every classroom with love, patience, and guidance. These were not just small gestures, they were the threads of a life full of meaning, of connection, of legacy. And yet, even in this tapestry of warmth, there were cracks, subtle, invisible, almost impossible to notice from the outside. Moments of tension, arguments, and control that seemed small in isolation, but when seen together, they painted a picture of a storm slowly approaching. A storm that would shatter the very foundation of a family whose life appeared perfect, whose smiles masked unease, whose love could not shield them from the coming horror. Picture the scene, a winter in Calgary, snow gently covering the streets, lights twinkling from houses filled with families preparing for Christmas. The Wardzelas, like so many others, were immersed in tradition, in comfort, in the joy of togetherness. But the warmth of the hearth could not chase away the cold that had begun to creep inside Anya's home. A cold fueled by control, by obsession, by unspoken threats that would soon explode into violence. And now, pause for a moment and ask yourself, how well do we truly know the people closest to us? How often do we see warning signs too subtle to name until it is too late? Imagine what it would feel like if the very person entrusted with love and family became the source of danger, the instrument of devastation. Could you recognize it in time? Could you stop it? These are questions that haunt every story like Anya's, questions that will haunt you as we go deeper into what happened. Before we move forward, I need you to commit. Like this video, share it, comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe. Because the story of the Wardzela family, their love, their loss, their courage, is one that deserves to be remembered, one that holds lessons and warnings we cannot ignore. And as you listen, remember, the tragedy is not just what happened, it is what could happen anywhere, to anyone, if the signs are ignored. But even the happiest pictures can hide cracks invisible to the outside world. The warmth, the laughter, the music of life, all of it can conceal shadows growing silently behind closed doors. And for Anya Wardzela, those shadows were growing, shaping the days leading to the most tragic Christmas Calgary had ever seen. Days that would transform love into terror, trust into fear, and family into a scene of unimaginable loss. And so we turn the page. To understand the storm that was coming, we must follow the threads of Anya's life, the bright moments, the bonds, the love, before we confront the darkness that would strike so suddenly, so mercilessly. The story moves forward, but every step carries the weight of what is at stake. And soon, you will see how even the strongest bonds, the deepest love, cannot always shield us from a husband from real hell. No one suspected Benedict Kamiński could ever hurt a soul. Not his neighbors, not his colleagues, not even his own family. On the surface, he was the perfect husband, the accomplished engineer, the polite, dependable man everyone admired. Yet beneath that polished exterior, a quiet darkness had taken root, small, invisible at first, almost imperceptible, but steadily growing with every passing year. Anya Wardzela had married him, believing in a life of shared love, laughter, and security. Together, they had 3 children, built a home, and maintained traditions. Friends described Anya as joyful, her laughter contagious, her presence warm. But behind closed doors, the life she shared with Benedict was measured in suspicion, criticism, and control. Text messages scrutinized, phone calls interrogated, even the way she managed everyday tasks became a source of tension. And because Benedict had no criminal record, no prior police complaints, no history that could have warned anyone, the danger remained hidden until it was too late. Think about it. How often do we trust the mask people wear, only to discover that behind a smile, control can fester like a quiet poison? Perhaps you have known someone like this. Someone who appears polite, calm, even loving, yet whose influence turns every decision into a test, every disagreement into a trial, every small act into a source of fear. For Anya, these moments were constant, subtle, exhausting. And for the 3 children, it meant growing up in a home where tension was always just beneath the surface. Neighbors saw a calm, polite man. Colleagues saw a meticulous engineer. Family saw a man capable of providing a secure life. But on Christmas Day 2024, that carefully maintained facade would collapse. A simple argument over a child's seat at the dinner table, a disagreement over a mundane chore, ignited a chain of events that would shatter the Wardzela family forever. The man everyone trusted became the man everyone feared in a single, horrifying moment. Now, ask yourself, how well do we really know the people closest to us? How often do we overlook warning signs because appearances are comforting? And most importantly, how do you protect the ones you love when danger comes not from the world outside, but from within your own home? These are questions that haunt every family facing hidden domestic control, and they would become the questions no one could answer for the Wardzelas. If you feel a shiver reading this, if you feel that uneasy sense that control can hide behind the kindest of smiles, then you must share this story, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Stories like this are not just to shock. They are to warn, to educate, and to honor lives taken far too soon. Because if we ignore the quiet, controlling behaviors, tragedy finds room to grow in silence. Benedict Kamiński's mask of respectability was about to slip, and the consequences would be unimaginable. The man who seemed ordinary, the husband everyone thought they knew, would transform in hours into a nightmare that left a family broken and 3 children orphaned. What followed that Christmas would shock the city of Calgary, the community, and anyone who believed love and trust could always protect a family. And now, we move forward to understand the moments leading up to that fateful day, the warning signs ignored, and the events that escalated into a tragedy no one could have imagined. Christmas had always been a time of warmth for the Wardzela family, a time of laughter, tradition, and togetherness. But on December 25, 2024, in a quiet Calgary home, the air was heavy with tension. At first, it seemed ordinary, plates clinking, children laughing, the aroma of holiday meals filling the house. Yet beneath the surface, the calm was brittle, and the cracks that had been forming for years were about to split wide open. Benedict Kamiński, the man who had appeared so polished, so controlled, began to criticize Anya over the smallest things. The way she sliced vegetables, the way she arranged the table. Trivial details, meaningless to anyone else, yet to him they were a test, a judgment, a challenge to his control. And with each passing moment, the tension in the room thickened, an invisible cord tightening around every heartbeat. Then came the spark, the moment that would ignite a chain of events no one could have imagined. One of their children, innocently seeking comfort, chose to sit by their grandfather instead of their father. To most, it was a simple, harmless choice. To Benedict, it was defiance. A flicker of anger passed over his face, subtle at first, then undeniable. His voice rose, sharp and demanding, echoing through the room, cutting through the laughter, turning joy into fear. Peter, Anya's brother, who had always been close to his sister, felt the weight of the moment. The anger, the forceful way Benedict pushed Anya, the disbelief at his audacity, it almost tipped into violence. Peter, protective and furious, nearly lashed out in a fistfight, restrained only by the hope that reason could somehow return to the room. But reason would not save them that day. Control had become obsession, and obsession can be lethal. After the confrontation, the room emptied, leaving only whispered words between siblings. Anya confided in Peter, her voice trembling, heart heavy, the weight of her fear unmistakable. She told him she planned to leave. She would seek a protective order. She would fight to reclaim the safety and peace she had lost inside her own home. It was a decision made with courage, a choice that could have saved her life, a lifeline thrown into the storm. Yet, tragically, in a cruel twist of fate, that decision would not protect her. It would only mark the moment when Benedict's quiet control escalated into something deadly. Imagine the horror of those hours, the dread that hangs in the heart when you realize that someone you trusted, someone you called husband and father, has crossed a line you never thought possible. For Anya, for Peter, and for her 3 young children, the stakes were no longer theoretical. The danger was real. It was immediate, and it was coming for them in a way that no one could have prepared for. If this story makes your heart race, if you feel the weight of helplessness and fear, then pause for a moment. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Because these stories are not just headlines, they are lessons, warnings, and reminders of how fragile safety can be when control and obsession take root behind closed doors. In the days that followed Christmas, Benedict Kaminsky would take that obsession further. Planning, calculating, watching, waiting. The man who had appeared ordinary, who had smiled at neighbors and colleagues, was preparing to commit acts that would destroy a family, orphan 3 children, and shock an entire community. The question that now haunts every parent, every sibling, every friend is, how could anyone foresee the depths to which control could descend, and how could a family fight for survival when danger comes from the one they trust most? And so, as the snow melted and the city returned to its normal rhythm, a storm was quietly gathering in the Wardzela home. A storm that would erupt in horror, leaving scars that time could never heal. The next chapter is not just a story, it is a chilling countdown to tragedy. By the afternoon of December 29, 2024, the city of Calgary appeared quiet, peaceful, a winter day like any other. The Wardzela family went about their routines, unaware that the lives they had built with love and laughter were about to be shattered forever. Anya dropped her mother, Alina, off at the family home on Connor Grove Northwest. A simple visit, a casual afternoon that seemed harmless. Friends and neighbors saw only a normal day, smiles exchanged, greetings shared, snow falling gently over rooftops. No one could have guessed that by nightfall, horror would descend on their lives. And then it happened. At approximately 9:30 p.m., the call came. Stanislaw Wardzela, a man who had devoted decades to providing, protecting, and nurturing his family, was found shot in his own home. His life, once defined by love and sacrifice, ended in an instant. Alina returned to discover the unimaginable. Her husband, her partner, the grandfather who had been a rock for 3 generations, was gone. Hours later, the tragedy escalated. Anya Kaminsky, beloved mother of 3, teacher, scout leader, and heart of her community, was murdered at her home in the Tuscany neighborhood. The children, Kezio, Kalinka, and Katsarek, watched in terror as their mother's life was stolen in front of them. 3 young lives frozen in shock, bearing witness to a nightmare no child should ever know. The safety of home, the comfort of family, had been violently ripped away. Think for a moment. As a parent, as a sibling, as a child, imagine that being your family's last memory together. The horror of that evening was compounded by the chilling methodical nature of the crimes. Benedict Kaminsky, once a respected engineer and a husband to Anya, had planned each move. The 2 murders occurred in separate locations, separated by hours, yet connected by a cold, deliberate intent. His children had been left alive, yes, but only after they had seen the violence, the chaos, the finality of a life snuffed out by someone they called father. It was calculated. It was personal. It was devastating. And the city of Calgary, the community that had embraced the Wardzela family, held its breath. Neighbors whispered, police scrambled, and a warning echoed through the streets. A dangerous man, armed and unstable, was on the loose. The Alberta Emergency Alert System, rarely used for domestic cases, was activated. Residents were urged to be vigilant, to stay indoors, to protect themselves. Every call to 911, every glance out a frosted window, was filled with fear. The familiar streets of Connor Grove and Tuscany became a hunting ground, and the families within them could not shake the terror that had entered their world. At this moment, as the manhunt began, one question burned in everyone's mind. How could a man so respected, so seemingly ordinary, have brought such devastation? How could a husband, a father, a neighbor unravel a family's life in less than 48 hours? And more hauntingly, what would become of the children left behind, the innocent witnesses of a crime no child should endure? If your heart is racing, if the horror chills you to your core, take a moment. Like, share, comment, subscribe. This story is not just news. It is a stark reminder of how quickly life can be stolen and how important it is to protect those we love. And so, as darkness fell over Calgary, the man who had once appeared harmless vanished into the night. Police traced his steps, but the clock was ticking. Hours passed with terror still lingering, unanswered questions multiplying with every minute. The children, trembling, bewildered, clung to relatives when they were finally found. The city watched, the community prayed, and a desperate manhunt began. A pursuit that would end only after tragedy, and only after questions that may never be fully answered. The story of December 29, 2024, is a story of loss, of innocence shattered, of a family torn apart by the one they trusted most. It is also a story that forces every parent, every sibling, every friend to ask themselves, how close are we to the hidden dangers in the lives around us? And how much do we truly know about the people we love? And as the first sirens cut through the night, as the city braced for what was to come, one thing was painfully clear. The nightmare had only just begun. The city of Calgary was gripped by fear. The quiet winter streets, once familiar and safe, suddenly felt alien, threatening, alive with danger. Hours had passed since the murders of Stanislaw Wardzela and Anya Kaminski, and the man responsible had vanished. Benedict Kaminski, the husband, the father, the engineer who had walked quietly through neighborhoods, who had smiled politely at neighbors, was now a wanted killer on the loose. The Alberta Emergency Alert System had been activated, a measure almost never used for domestic violence. A warning blared through phones, radios, and televisions. A dangerous, armed man was moving through the area. Families locked doors. Parents held their children tighter. Hearts pounded, eyes darted toward shadows. And you, the viewer, are left to wonder, what would you do if the person terrorizing your city was the man standing next door? Tips flooded into police. Benedict had been spotted in Water Valley, a small community northwest of Calgary. Officers moved quickly, tracing his vehicle, searching fields and back roads. Every moment was tense, every call was a heartbeat racing through the city. Could he strike again? Would he take more lives? The weight of his actions was pressing down on everyone, on his family, on his neighbors, on the officers tasked with stopping him. Every second mattered. Imagine being a parent in Calgary that evening. You know a killer is out there, someone who had already shattered 2 families, and your children are at home asleep. You check doors, check windows, check the phone for updates, every sound outside a potential threat. You are consumed by fear, helpless to protect the ones you love most. That was the reality. That was the terror. And then, at approximately 3:40 p.m. on December 30th, the chase ended. Police located Benedict Kaminski near his black Nissan Pathfinder, parked along a road in the Water Valley area. The manhunt, a relentless 36-hour pursuit that had kept the city on edge, came to its final, horrifying conclusion. Benedict Kaminski was dead. Suicide had claimed the man who had destroyed 2 generations of a family. In less than 2 days, he had taken his wife, her father, terrorized a community, left 3 children orphaned, and then erased himself from the earth. Reflect. Try to imagine the weight of that evening. A family shattered. Children who will never forget what they saw. A city gripped in fear. And a man whose outward appearance had fooled everyone he met. How often do we think we truly know those closest to us? How often do we underestimate the danger hiding behind ordinary faces? The aftermath was immediate. The Alberta emergency alert was cancelled, but the community's sense of security was gone. Families would sleep uneasily for months, if not years, haunted by the knowledge that such violence could erupt in their own neighborhoods. And the children, Kezio, Kalinka, and Katsarek, their lives would be forever defined by what they witnessed. Frozen in terror, helpless in the face of unimaginable loss, they would grow up with memories of a night that should have never happened. And you, listening now, must ask yourself, how would you react if this were your family? If these screams, this violence, this loss touched your own door? Take a moment and consider the gravity of what unfolded. And then, if you feel the weight of these events, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let others understand the fragility of safety. Let others honor the memory of those lost. Let these stories serve as both warning and tribute. In just 36 hours, a man once considered ordinary had rewritten the lives of everyone connected to him. 2 lives stolen, 3 children left orphaned, a city trembling, and the final act of that terrible spree completed in silence. The manhunt was over, but the pain, the grief, the unanswered questions, those would linger forever. And the story was far from over. Because for the Wardzela family, for the children, for their friends and community, survival was only the beginning of a long, painful journey to healing. And as Calgary tried to make sense of what had happened, the world watched and asked, how could this happen? Could it happen again? And most hauntingly of all, what would we do if we were next? The snow had settled over Calgary, but the chill in the hearts of the Wardzela family and the city could not be melted. 2 lives had been stolen in an act of calculated violence. Stanislaw Wardzela, a father who had spent decades building a family, a home, and a legacy, was gone. His daughter, Anya Kaminski, a mother, teacher, and soul of the community, was gone. And in their absence, 3 young children were left with a silence no one should ever hear, with memories of horror that no child should endure. Just take a moment to imagine what that silence feels like. Imagine walking into the room where your mother once laughed, where your grandfather once told stories, and finding only emptiness. Imagine being Kezio, Kalinka, or Katsarek, looking for comfort and finding none. Their lives, forever divided by a man they had called father, forever marked by a night they cannot forget. Can you feel it? That dread, that confusion, that fear? That is the weight the Wardzela children carry, a weight we cannot ignore. And yet, as the city tried to return to normal, as the news outlets reported on the manhunt that ended with Benedict Kaminski's death, the true horror of what had happened began to sink in. A man who had appeared ordinary, who had smiled politely at neighbors, who had gone to work, attended events, and blended into everyday life, had orchestrated a plan that shattered a family. It was the ultimate act of control, of cruelty, of dominance. And the echoes of that act will resonate for years, if not generations. Consider this. How often do we look past the surface of those closest to us? How often do we assume that a kind smile, a polite demeanor, or a seemingly ordinary life means safety? Benedict Kaminski's actions remind us that danger can hide where we least expect it, and that the people we trust most can sometimes become the architects of unimaginable suffering. And the question we must ask ourselves, because it is not just a story on a screen, is this: how many others are suffering in silence right now? How many families are holding back fear, pain, and threats because they don't know where to turn, because they believe no one will listen? If you or someone you love is living in fear, take this moment seriously. Speak up. Reach out. Help exists. Shelters, hotlines, community support, law enforcement. Do not wait for tragedy to strike before acting, because silence can cost lives. Every call, every word, every gesture of support matters. Imagine if someone had known, if someone had acted, if someone had intervened. Could Stanislaw and Anya have been spared? Could those children have been spared their trauma? We may never know. But what we do know is that action now can save lives tomorrow. And so, we remember Anya and Stanislaw, not only for the lives they lost, but for the lives they touched. Anya, a teacher who inspired her students, who nurtured her children, who built community through scouting and cultural traditions. Stanislaw, a father and grandfather whose love and guidance shaped the lives around him. Their story is not just one of horror, it is